Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm honored to be having with me over the program Dr. Alaa Khalifa. As we did see over the past report, this is a unique astronomical solar phenomenon that happens every year twice, in February and in October, on the 22nd of each month. How does this make the civilization of Egypt very unique, and to be boosting the revenues from such a unique civilization that we could be taking advantage of now?
Are you ready to be amazed?
Yes.
Okay, then listen to this story. If you'd like to be amazed, I'll tell you something that in commenting about this report that we've just heard.
Yes.
Ancient Egyptians were extremely skillful, and the way how they cut monuments and temples and aligned them with perfect astronomical alignments was staggering, was amazing. When the ancient Egyptians built this temple, it was indeed a great astronomical phenomena of having the sun aligned specifically at the 2 specific days during the year. They go all the way through the temple and then eliminate the dark, gloomy sanctuary of the temple. But what you don't know, what's not been mentioned in the report,
yes,
is that this phenomena used to take place on the 21st of February and the 21st of October. So it was never on the 22nd,
yes,
it was always the 21st. What happens is, in 1964, due to the rising water of Lake Nasser, we had a huge massive campaign called the Nubian Rescue Campaign, where we salvaged nearly like 26 temples. And one of the biggest rescue campaigns that was done was at the Temple of Abu Simbel itself, in which we collected nearly $40 million, brought engineers and our architects and technicians from all over the world, trying to figure out how we're going to be saving this temple. Most of the other temples that were saved, they were simply dismantled, moved to a higher ground or far away from the rising water of Lake Nasser.
Yes.
But for Abu Simbel, since it's a rock-cut temple in the sand, it was extremely difficult to imagine moving an entire mountain until a bunch of Egyptian engineers came up with a most astonishing, amazing idea. Those are the brainchild of our civilization. Those new engineers, they suggested, why don't we sew the temple in pieces? Why we cut it, sew it in pieces, and then take the temple in pieces and reassemble it one more time, you know, on a higher, much higher ground, 69 meters higher than the original ground of the temple and 100 meters back, so it can escape the water of Lake Nasser. However, during this time, the engineers, with all their modern equipment and tools and technology, were aware of that rising sun phenomena that used to take place twice a year, the 21st of February and the 21st of October, which actually marches the birthday of the king and his coronation day.
Yes.
So because the engineers were aware of that phenomena used to take place for thousands of years, they wanted to keep the same phenomena. But this time, by using the most modern tools, computers and every geometrical and mathematical tool that they know of, to recreate and keep and sustain in the same phenomena. Unfortunately, after they moved the temple, while they were extremely careful, they missed it by 1 day. So nowadays it's a 1 day different. It's a 1 day ahead instead of the right day. But that proved to us one thing, that ancient Egyptians were extremely skillful.
Yes. Even
with our modern machinery and our modern equipment and science, we couldn't get it right. While they did it 3,500 years ago, or almost 3,000 years ago, they did it exactly on the same day where the king was born and the king was crowned.
That's the story behind moving the temple.
I know that it's the first time for you to hear this story.
Yes, exactly. Very amazing, as you mentioned.
It's a shame for us that our humanity, with all these technological advances, we were not able to get it exactly as the ancient Egyptians did, which shows how ancient Egyptians were extremely advanced in science and technology, and how they were able to get the calculations precisely done. And this would make every one of us proud of ancient Egypt, of our ancestors, and makes us amazed until today. Of
course, yes, until today, as you mentioned, Doctor. You mentioned that it is on the day of the birth of the king, of Ramesses II, and the coronation of the king as well. Does it have anything to do, according of significance, with the harvest season with agriculture in ancient Egypt?
Normally, those 2 days were the equinox days.
Yes.
So, they basically knew that the sun is coming to an alignment, and but it doesn't start the season or end the season. However, aligning the cutting of the temple, when they cut the temple, it's a rock cut temple. So when they cut it, they knew that the sun is aligned on that particular angle, and that's how when they build the sanctuary, they put those 4 statues in the sanctuary. Ramses II as a deified person, Amun-Ra as the second most famous god to be worshipped, and they put God Betah, god of darkness, and God Rahor Ekhti, for whom the entire temple is being built. And that's shown on the facade of the temple. Ramses II still baffles every one of us until today, all of his great achievements, and indeed Abu Simbel is like the 4th pyramid of Egypt after the 3 pyramids of Giza. However, we don't have 4 pyramids, we have nearly 93 pyramids.
Yes.
But Ramses II, with his massive construction, with his engineering feat, was able to amaze us until today. It's one of the most famous sites that every traveler who comes to Egypt would love to go there. And the story of the rescue operation of the temples of Abu Simbel is still amazing, amazes a lot of people today. And remember, we missed it today by 1 day, and the ancient ones did it on the right spot.
So it used to be today, on the 21st of October and the 21st of February.
It used to be today, and we
so we're not a day ahead.
We missed it by 1 day in modern time when we saved the temple.
But according to ancient Egypt, we're exactly
on time. That's why I asked you in the very beginning of my talk, are you ready to get amazed?
I didn't know that.
Yes.
But one amazing aspect of course, having the temple in itself, the sun aligning the face of the king and his queen Nefertari. On the other hand, the sun never aligns on the face of the god of
Do you know why?
darkness.
Because he was god of darkness. He represents darkness. God Betah stays there, and one of his main titles was god of darkness. And this is the reason why when the sun spreads out inside the sanctuary of the temple, it never reaches God Betah. It was a great notion. But also one thing you need to know, that Ramses II was one of those kings that have built a very special temple for his wife.
Yes.
A second temple of Abu Simbel, which is beautifully decorated with a lot of ornamented scenes, colorful ones inside the temple for his wife.
It was his favorite wife. He had other wives, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He had so many other wives and concubines.
Yes.
However, his first and favorite wife, but he wanted to show how loyal he is to her by building a beautiful temple. When it comes to a dedication of a huge, massive temple for someone, people consider it like, well, that's something very special, because none of the other kings have done this. So it's amazing what this king actually lived until he was 94 years old, and he died when he was, actually reigned almost like 64 or 65 years of reign. And he built so many temples everywhere in Egypt. And it's not only that we celebrate the temple of Abu Simbel, we celebrate Ramses II himself as a great commander and a leader for this country 3,000 years ago, and it shows how powerful he is. And he actually built the temple in the exact same location, and that location to border between Egypt and Nubia, just to show the Nubians how strong he is and what kind of control he can, and by allowing them to come in and worship the exact same Egyptian gods.
On the other hand, we have seen also this week the partial opening or the inauguration of the GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum, which features Ramesses II, a huge statue for him, which used to be, of course, in downtown Cairo, just in front of the railway station, the Ramesses train station here in Cairo.
One of the things, if you track the record of Ramses II, especially, this is the reason why in the Grand Egyptian Museum, which is an amazing thing that they have had, like a soft opening nowadays, but they ornamented the museum with a lot of statues of Ramses II and Senusert I. But the most interesting thing is that Ramses II himself was so fond of building statues for himself, which is amazing. And it's not only in the temple of Abu Simbel where you find the four-seated figures of Ramses II. It's also there are statues that have been found in the temple of Karnak. There are temples that have been statues found in the beautiful temple of the Ramesseum, which is the mortuary temple of Ramses II that he built in the west bank of Luxor. In front of the temple of the Ramesseum, Ramses II built a statue which collapsed in the year 27 BC. The huge massive earthquake must have had the statue, fragmented in pieces. But when he built the statue that fronts the temple of the Ramesseum, it was 1,000 tons in weight. That statue was 1,000 tons in weight. So it's not only
we have nowadays, it's a lot lighter.
Exactly. So the guy was like amazing, the legacy that he left behind, and we're so proud of that legacy. We're so proud of that history. The Egyptian Museum, of course, is a great news that the Egyptian Museum has been opened and with a soft inauguration, as you said. But the Egyptian Museum shows a different way of lighting and the way how you focus the exhibition art. So before we used to have antiquities in the old Egyptian Museum, but there was no exhibition art. There was a historical value. Today we have both. We have the historical value and the exhibition art, and the exhibition art is actually what creates the experience. I know that you must be amazed that I'm a marketing expert in destination marketing, and I have all this historical knowledge. And it's very important when you are marketing a destination is to have a full wealth of knowledge about that destination, with the history, geography, political, everything. You need to have the economical overview, you need to have a historical overview, you need to know everything about the place. So when you target the right audience, for a marketing campaign, whether in this destination or any other destination, you really need to know how to localize things, how to speak, to the hearts of the people. And that's why I'm really thrilled that the new Grand Egyptian Museum is now in a soft opening, and it's been highly demanded by a lot of travelers. And
how do you see the process of marketing the Grand Egyptian Museum nowadays? And of course, before that, we have seen concerts held. We have seen soft opening, the Great Stairway, as we have seen over the past few weeks and months. So how do you see the marketing process nowadays?
Well, I'm not aware what kind of marketing they're doing. Actually, no one called me to ask for my opinion.
Yes.
However, I believe that they must 100% have a marketing plan and a marketing strategy for that, because it's a huge mega event. And the status of the museum implies that the marketing budget must have been really big in order to have that big buzz around the world that the largest, biggest museum that houses Egyptian antiquities being, opened in Egypt.
Yes.
Until this very day, we have not seen a lot of marketing activities. We have not seen media buying. Yet we have seen some concerts. We have seen some events. But we need to raise awareness and we need to raise engagement of whether current travelers or future travelers, and entice them to come and visit Egypt because of the Grand Egyptian Museum. But once, I promise you, once I get to know what are the marketing plans, what are the marketing strategy, and once I am in the loop, I will tell you my honest opinion. But I'm quite sure people are doing their best. And I'm quite sure it will be something useful and amazing.
Yes, following the inauguration of the National Museum of the Egyptian Civilization in Fustat, we have seen the process of building museums and inaugurating museums that tell the story of the Egyptian civilization. What do you expect in terms of the Grand Egyptian Museum to be telling the story of what? The ancient Egyptians?
Ancient Egyptian civilization. See the difference between the NEMIC, the National Museum of Civilization, and the Egyptian Museum, is that one is more specialized into ancient Egypt, the other one is specialized into all the various cultures that went through Egypt. For example, ancient Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Coptic, and Islamic. So you're talking about 4 glimpses of 4 different eras.
Yes.
You know, where the museum is illustrating all of these different eras under one roof. On the other hand, when you go to a museum like the Grand Egyptian Museum, it's only ancient Egyptian antiquities that have been exhibited there, treasures, whether it's been collected from the tomb of King Tutankhamun, or treasures or other valuable treasures that of the other discoveries that have been exhibited there. Interestingly enough, that the museum focuses on the artistic masterpiece.
Yes.
And that would make the visit to the museum really a fun one.
Do you think that focusing on one aspect of the Egyptian civilization at the Grand Egyptian Museum was a better idea than what we had at the Nemek? Because you mentioned that we had 4 glimpses, of course not the full story, but glimpses from the civilizations that we have had over here in Egypt. Was it the better idea that to be inaugurating the biggest museum in the world, the largest museum in the world, in the Grand Egyptian Museum, to be focusing on ancient Egypt?
Let's be honest. I mean, if I'm a marketeer marketing this museum, yes, of course. It's just it focuses in ancient Egypt. It's specialized. The more you get specialized in something, the more the museum becomes extremely attractive. For example, you have other museums that are specialized. Like, for example, when you go abroad and you see a museum specialized in one particular industry or one particular anthropology or one particular history, it becomes far more attractive, far more fun than having a museum with mixed kind of civilization.
So this is tailored for
this is tailored. See, museums are supposed to narrate the story. They're supposed to put the narrative, okay? And when you have a tour guide that is taking you from the first dynasty, or even the pre-dynastic age, to the first dynasty relics, and then moving to the Old Kingdom relics, and then moving to the Middle Kingdom relics, and then moving to the intermediate periods, and then the New Kingdom relics, and then the late period relics, and then the verge of the Greek-Roman period. It's staggering. You're going through a journey of 3,000 years. So this is why when you asked me about what do you think of how the marketing for the museum, I hope that the marketing strategy focuses on the narrative and focuses on the amazing breathtaking artifacts that the museum houses, on the fact that it's the largest entity with Egyptian antiquities in the world, and the place that houses all the great massive treasures, you know, the very famous ones like Tutankhamun and many other ancient discoveries. The Grand Egyptian Museum is truly a masterpiece. And it's supposed to stay for generations. It's supposed to be our icon.
Yes.
When you think of France and you think of the museums in France, what kind of museum you think of?
Louvre.
Louvre, right? Think in the next 10 years, when you think of museums in Egypt, think of the gem. So that's going to be our trademark, and that's going to be the beginning of our marketing message. That's where it shows our identity and shows how grandiose we were at one time, by showing how great the ancient Egyptian civilization.
Yes, and that is the gift of Egypt to the world. Doctor, allow me to be going to the other report of the Daily Debate for tonight, focusing on Egypt being a promising winter destination for the upcoming few months. So stay tuned.